Hi everyone, welcome to BW Business World. We are running a very important initiative by BW Marketing World called Marketing Maestros. We have a very important guest tonight, Mr. Damyant Singh Khanoria, CMO, Oppo India. Hi Damyant, how are you?
I'm good, Rima. How are you?
Great. So Damyant, firstly, what I want to know from you is that what attracted you to the marketing landscape to get into the business of marketing?
Well, uh, I think it was more of an accident than anything else. I passed out of college without really knowing what I wanted to do. And I just happened to uh, meet a recruiter who offered me an opportunity to interview with an advertising agency called Capital Advertising. And yeah, I happened to meet two doyens of the ad industry in Sunil Sasteva and Prasad Subramaniam. And yeah, so that was really my initiation into the world of marketing. And I think it's just the raw passion that Capital kind of injected into people who worked there back in the day, and just how we were encouraged to think and how we were encouraged to kind of problem solve was what kind of lured me in. And I think the romance with marketing really started with working on brands like Spice Telecom back in the day. There was GPI, Godfrey Phillips India, and essentially the way Capital would kind of encourage people who work there to think in being creative and more than creative, just being more lateral in the way we thought of solving for problems and using consumer insights and really solving for marketing problems in very simple ways is what kind of hooked me in and kind of got me addicted to this world. And since then, I've just had the privilege and an honor of working with some really bright people who've helped me along the way to kind of really think different, so to speak.
What would you say have been the turning point of your life in the marketing industry?
I think two. I would kind of use two instances or two things that really kind of shaped how I kind of ended up being the kind of person I am. The first one was working on McDonald's while I was at Mudra, and this was literally my last job in advertising. And the way McDonald's, I think even now works with their agency partners is really empowering. The way the agency works with the business is refreshing, was refreshing back in the day. It helped me really get into the thick of things and understanding what really drove McDonald's business, understanding the business model. And I think when you start understanding how the business, the brand sets itself up or sets up their shop in the way they kind of put their brand in the world, from a business standpoint, is when you start kind of creating better work and having a deeper appreciation for the marketing process as well. So for me, that was the first turning point, if I may call it, because I literally think of working on McDonald's as being my MBA. And so for me, that was really the initiation into solving business problems with creative solutions. So that was the first. And then, Adidas was the next big turning point. It was a 12-year turning point in my career. But what Adidas really did was, I play sports, and for me, joining Adidas was a bit of a dream because Adidas has the longest time been a brand that one aspired to owning products from, and then to get the opportunity of really sharing that passion that I had as a kid into the next generation was a dream. And Adidas just inculcates a certain behavior of being passionate at the workplace and believing in a larger objective or a larger vision of how sports can make the world a better place. And for me, it was just something that vibed really deeply with me as an individual, as someone who was a passionate lover of sport. And to kind of then get the opportunity of marketing that brand for me was insanely inspiring. So those two would be the life-changing moments for me.
Coming on to, since you mentioned McDonald's and Adidas as well, so sustainability is a very new word and a very hot word that is being used in the market. That everyone is after sustainability, have initiatives and everything coming up. So how would what would be your take on brands for green messaging as well as greenwashing being taken? to stay relevant in the market, because as you may know, there's a lot of brands who are working on green washing as well. So what is your take on the green mystery and greenwashing?
Yeah, Rima, I think to begin with, we all of us need to acknowledge the deep crisis that our planet is in, and what we're going through as a generation on the planet is something which is scary at one level, but also something that should literally agitate us into action, into taking action. It's the world that we're going to leave our children and the future generations is really in our hands today. And unfortunately, we're not doing a great job of it. As you know, I mean, this is probably going to be the hottest year in the history of Earth. And so for us to act is imperative, and so I see it from a lens of, yes, there's greenwashing, and there are brands that potentially are doing it for the sake of ticking a box, but I also feel that some action is better than none, right? There's obviously a way of doing it right, and there are brands that feel deeply about this and are hence acting on it. But even brands that are, for argument's sake, engaging in greenwashing, it's all right. I think one can be forgiving towards them as long as they understand that it's the first step that they need to take, right? Acknowledgement of the issue, I think, has been the big challenge, for the environment and for climate, for us taking steps towards reversing climate change. So yeah, it's an issue. I think as long as brands do or approach this with honesty, approach this with a sense of responsibility, not just towards the balance sheet, but towards society at large. I think that's what's required. Some brands do it really, really well, others not so much. I'm really, really proud of the fact that, at Oppo, we've taken the pledge of being carbon neutral by 2050. It's a stake in the ground about saying this is something that's important to us. And we're not really waiting that long either to kind of, make changes in the way we literally create our products. Our products, the way we build our products, we literally want people to buy our products less often. And so we're making them more durable. We're making them last longer. And so to give you an example, we recently launched the Reno 10. And this product, from a pure battery standpoint, lasts for about 2 times as long as usual devices would. So we have 1600 charge cycles that the battery is good for, which means you can use a Oppo Reno 10 for up to 4 years. So that's one element of it. The other element that really kind of drives purchase of new smartphones is latency, about how slow your phone becomes over a period of time. And that we've addressed with Color OS, where our devices will run as new for as long as 3 years. So from an Oppo standpoint, yes, there's this objective of being carbon neutral by 2050. But even the products that we're putting in the hands of consumers today are greener products than they were probably a decade back, or even 3 or 4 years back. So yes, greenwashing is an issue, but as long as we build what we build with a sense of responsibility towards society in general, and believe that the future of mankind is at stake. I know it sounds dramatic, but it is pretty much the case. Good things will happen.
As you mentioned with Renault as well. So with the rise of technology, so I would actually like to know that how do you envision generative AI's potential to enhance content creation and storytelling strategies in the entire marketing landscape?
Yeah, it's such a tricky question. I mean, writers in Hollywood have gone on strike over this, right? So yeah, I was actually having a conversation with around this in office a few days back, and we need to acknowledge that AI, unlike the metaverse, is here to stay. It's not transient. It's not something which is going to kind of get blown away. It's supremely beneficial in a lot of ways. It's a bit like what the smartphone was 12, 13 years back when smartphones kind of came into the world. What smartphones did from a productivity standpoint is what AI is going to do. Usage of AI and areas that it kind of touches, I think we meaning people, consumers, or just us as individuals, we're very sensitive about what it's going to do, and job loss, and are we going to lose control over how the world is run around us? Yeah, those are all concerns. I think when it comes to creativity, it's probably one of the things where there are going to be advancements, and there are some base level things that AI is probably going to do better than humans do. But what AI does not have, which all of us are blessed with, is imagination, right? And I think when it comes to creating something new and unique, yes, AI is going to get better, uh, but there's a reason why humanity has survived for all these centuries and millennials. And so I think we'll figure out a good balance on how we utilize AI, and not let it get out of hand. As far as the creative class is concerned, I think there are some areas that will get impacted, most definitely, and there are others where AI is just not going to be, or at least in its current form, is just not built to replace the creative class.
I think it's a long battle that people are going to have until unless it drives its full potential.
Rima, one of the other elements that one should acknowledge and think about also is, the world is aging. Yeah, we're lucky to be in India, where we have the demographic dividend, as we call it, and we are a fairly young country. But there are lots and lots of countries around the world that are aging, that are increasingly, getting older. And in those societies, in those markets, in those communities, AI will play the role of a force multiplier of sorts. And so it's really about using ingenuity that we've all been born with in meaningful ways to really harness the power of AI, instead of kind of being scared of it and pushing it back. So I feel there's a lot of upsides around AI, and we need to kind of just figure what the sweet spot is.
Coming to my next question, how do you ensure authenticity and transparency in purpose-driven marketing, like particularly when you're addressing sensitive issues? Because with all campaigns, there's a lot of sensitivity, and with Oppo's also, there's a lot of technology that is being shown on the ads. There are, advertisements where even the very sensitive issues are addressed. So, how do you particularly ensure authenticity and transparency in those purpose-driven marketing?
Yeah, look, if what you're saying to consumers is not a part of your DNA and how the company builds its products and what it stands for, then you should probably not put out work of that sort, of that nature. And again, I think going back to the conversation you're having around greenwashing, consumers are smart enough to figure when you're being real and when you're not. And so I think the question to kind of answer is this something that I'm doing to kind of get likes on the internet, or am I doing this because this is core to who I am as a company and as a brand, and hence kind of putting out marketing? Because consumers are smart, they figure, right? And I think when you're not being authentic, you're simply wasting your effort, your energies, and your marketing dollars. And so it's best avoided if it's not authentic.
As you mentioned, the consumers are smart today. So with this new generation, especially Gen Z that has come up, they are very aware of what is happening, whether it be of environment, whether it be of advertisements or any marketing strategies that are being used. So how, and similarly, another marketing aspect, influencer marketing, has taken a major rise during the pandemic rather.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you balance between creative freedom for influencers and also maintaining brand guidelines to maintain brand consistency and messaging alignment?
Look, so let me give you a little perspective on my own journey on how I saw influencers, right? And so given the fact that I've literally now worked for more than 2 decades, there was a certain resistance to how, like, I personally felt about influencers who were doing things that they were doing on the internet for the sake of just kind of, making a quick buck, right? It eventually comes down to who you pick to work with, and how, again, to use your word, how authentic their story is with what your brand narrative might be, and when you get this mix right, magic happens. And when you don't, then you have noise, right? So again, Reem, I think the way influencers have evolved in the last 2, 3, 4 years, they've become a very important and powerful voice for brands, right? Because especially when you get it right, because what they do is they tell your story in really deep, meaningful ways, and the way they kind of incorporate the product that they sometimes market uh, in surprisingly beneficial ways to the brand is what makes them important in the marketing mix. So again, I think it goes down to figuring out the overlap between your storyline and what communities these influencers reach out to, and the kind of messaging they put out, and really kind of seeking and doing the hard work on getting the choices of influencers you work with right. When it comes to Gen Z, I think they mostly are seeking like honesty, right? They're seeking a narrative which is not faff, right? And they reject you pretty quickly if they feel that you're going down a path which is not rooted in reality. So I think for Gen Z as well, it's what's worked for consumers over the last many years. I think the way they articulate it is obviously a lot sharper than probably what was happening a few decades back or a generation or two back. But consumers, by definition, haven't really changed. I think the platforms on which they express themselves have a lot more. I mean, the power of consumers has become a lot more important now, or has become a lot stronger now because of the social platforms they kind of use and leverage. But the essence of how consumers have been hasn't really changed. Their expectations evolve and what they care about evolves. But honesty in advertising is been as important in the 40s, 50s, 60s as it is today. So I think there's a core essence that hasn't changed. It's just how you're putting that message out is what's evolved and changed.
So when you say that influencer marketing, when you go for influencer marketing, you let the creators, especially the creators community, because they have a niche of their own. So do you believe in giving them the freedom and letting them know with the guidelines that Oppo or anyone else that you want to be a part of are providing?
Yeah. So Rima, giving people that you work with, giving creatives that you work with, the freedom to express themselves the way they do is supremely important, because you can't you can't get an eagle to kind of you can't get an eagle snip its wings and then say, show me how you fly, right? So you need to really encourage the influencers that you work with in expressing your brand storyline in the way that they storytell. Otherwise, you lose the essence of why you even went to these influencers, right? So leveraging them best is when you let them be. You guide them, you give them some guardrails, you give them a canvas on which they should print or they should paint. But then to kind of snip their wings and tell them this is what I want you to say or do, essentially makes your work vanilla, and that's never fun, right?
So, since you mentioned that you've been in the industry for more than 2 decades, so what are the opportunities and challenges do you anticipate in the future of social media marketing? Because it has taken a total revolution. Social media is it today. Even the new platform threads, it has broken all the records. So, how do you? What opportunities and challenges do you see in the future of social media platform? And how do you navigate to stay ahead in that space?
One of the things about the emergence of social media also is the fact that traditional media has kind of underlined its own importance in several different ways, right? And I think the power of TV, the power of out of home, the power of print is something that's kind of making a big comeback, right? Business magazines, for example, right? There's a certain authenticity to reading a business magazine and the depth that it covers in the editorial content it kind of supports, that it makes it a great platform for brands to leverage and work with, right? So I'm a big fan of traditional media. I think if you use out of home right, it I think trumps anything that you can, or it trumps or kind of equals the impact you can get with digital, for example. There's nothing as powerful as television when it comes to driving preference, because what you get when you're advertising on TV is, of course, scale, but there's also bigness attached to being on TV. any brand can advertise on digital platforms, right? Starting from your nukkar ka chai wala if he chooses to. And so social media can be, from an environment standpoint, something which could be challenging to show up in, right? And so what traditional media really kind of gives you is some of the shine that it historically gave you as well: reach, impact, scale. These are things that traditional media does really, really well. And I think it's still very important to acknowledge social media and digital media. Although just the emergence of so many different social media platforms has made it even more difficult for brands to reach consumers. And so yeah, there are metrics that allow you to kind of track how efficient your spend has been. But for me, the big challenge around digital is really attribution of spends to real consumers to begin with, and then of course, is it really driving brand metrics? It's probably a great tool for you to sell, to do social or e-commerce on, but there are some other challenges that I associate with digital as well. So I think a balance is really important, but I think what's really important for marketers to do is acknowledge that traditional media today is probably as powerful as it was back in the day. And if you use traditional media well, the scale and the impact that you create is very, very powerful, because you're literally today spending 7-8 hours staring at a screen. When you choose to look up at the real world and you see something which is awe-inspiring and a good piece of work, it'll stay with you. So I think it's balance is kind of important.
So I think it comes with its own pros and cons,
Yeah,
as we say.
absolutely.
Traditional has its own pros and cons, and social media does. But I think social media is. What do you think? Because with the Gen Z coming up and Gen Alpha now, Gen Alpha is coming up, which is even more driven towards social media. And coming back to your traditional media, definitely it has its own. It definitely has its own audience. So do you see that leveraging social media will, because new platforms are coming up and they're just moving here and there, a lot of traction they get. They are currently breaking records. So you think that social media, leveraging social media, will be the new big thing?
I don't know if it's a new big thing, Nima. I mean, we are quite honestly spending about 45% of our overall marketing spends on digital platforms, right? So it's not really new. I just feel it's really difficult to stand out in on social media platforms, right? And so it requires obviously a lot of hard work, and it requires you to create work which cuts the clutter, because it's really, really difficult to do memorable work, to kind of create memorable advertising on social media. So yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly a very, very important media platform, and one that you need to kind of really be attuned to. I mean, we actually have an entire team in Oppo, that's kind of purely looking at creating social content for just Instagram, right? So it's not as if the importance of social media is lost on us. We do pursue it with a lot of vigor. And so yes, it's important, but like I said, it's important for you to have a very differentiated point of view and to focus your energies on getting it right on the platforms that really, really matter to you. And so to give you just an example of Oppo, given the fact that we make fantastic camera phones, and our brand is kind of really driven towards creating products that help people be better creators in terms of photography and videography. Our go-to platform is Instagram, right? That's where we kind of create a lot of content for. We use YouTube as well very, very actively. So it's really about not being everywhere, So I don't have a team that's working on creating content purely for Twitter, for argument's sake, right? But we do have a sense of a sense of mission and purpose around Instagram. So it's really about making choices and then really backing yourself in making a difference in the kind of work that you put out on these social media platforms. So you need to kind of pick what works for you, or what seemingly is the right platform for you, and then you need to kind of religiously pursue that platform and do amazing work on that platform.
One of the most important questions I really would like to know from you is that in that marketing landscape, which marketing veterans or leaders do you admire and find inspiration from your professional journey?
Yeah, look, I think there are a lot of people. For me, you know, I can put it down to three names maybe, right? The first one for me would always be Sunil Sachdeva. He was the one of the founders of Capital Advertising, and I loved him because he just had a deep passion for what he did, which was advertising and marketing. But more importantly, he also, and he was an amazingly talented. He is an amazingly talented person. But what he did do was also bring a sense of purpose towards giving back to the country and to society in general, using that gift he had. So for me, Sunil definitely somebody that I have huge admiration for. Then the second person is Phil. Phil is was the head of product marketing at Apple. Phil Schiller. He would basically be the person who would work alongside Steve Jobs in presenting at the Apple keynotes. And I was a part of his extended team when I was working in that company. And for me, he brought a sense of clarity and purpose to what one needs to kind of do in terms of marketing, which I found, or I still find, really, really inspiring. I have notes from his emails that he would sent out to people on my phone even now, and I glance at it from time to time, because it just kind of helps you reset your North Pole or your North Star, in kind of doing the right thing, and understanding why you're even in this. So for me, he'd probably be the second person that I have a lot of admiration for. And the third one, I wouldn't say it's because of the marketing prowess of the individual, but because I just find her to be supremely inspiring as a person, and what change she's brought around in the company she works at, is Mrs. Neeta Ambani. I love her deeply for what she's done to Reliance as a company. She's brought a human face to Reliance. I had the good fortune of working with her when I was at Adidas. We were a sponsor of Mumbai Indians, and I firsthand saw just her journey as a businesswoman, starting 2009, 2010. 2010, I think, was the first season she got involved in the Mumbai Indians, and just to kind of see her grow as a businesswoman, because those were really early days for her. She just kind of gotten back, or gotten into having a more active role in the company. But just some of the things that she would kind of talk about, and how she even worked with Adidas, was for me just special. I think she's really transformed and given Reliance a human face. She's probably, she's third on the list.
Okay, so since you have mentioned the people you get inspired from, so any piece of advice, marketing advice or life advice you would like to share with those who look up to you and get inspired by you?
Yeah, one thing, as I'm going to give you again three things. Three is a good number, right? The first one is irrespective of how well educated you are and what you might have done, as you kind of have worked your way through towards getting a first job or a second or a third job, never stop being inquisitive. That I feel is what makes you great, not just at marketing, but I think anything that you choose to do. So being inquisitive and not being afraid of asking questions is really, really important. So that, I think, is the first piece of advice I would offer. The second is, it's really critical to be passionate about what you do. Work and life become really easy when you find that magical sweet spot of finding something that you're passionate about, that kind of drives you. And Monday mornings are not things that you don't look forward to, but Monday mornings are magical because you're going back to doing something that you truly love. So finding finding something that you're passionate about, I feel, is again something which makes life, and your work life especially, easier, and really extracts the best out of you. So that would be my second piece of advice. And the third one is never quit on yourself. I think, and I won't say quit on yourself, but I think just backing yourself into doing things right is something important. Like there was there's a gentleman called Shiv Sethuraman who was heading TVW about a decade back, and he said something to me which again is quite nice. And he once told me it's really important for you to use your gut as a marketer, because when you use your gut is when you fine tune your sensibilities as a marketer, and when you don't use your gut, you lose it. And so taking decisions or making decisions, big, small, and backing yourself to kind of seeing them through is something that I feel is critical in one's growth as an individual, and as a professional. So yeah, those would be the three things.
Lovely. So my last, it's not even a question rather, but how would you describe your entire marketing journey or marketing career in one word or one sentence, probably?
Yeah. So, and it's not necessarily a word to describe a career, but I just feel as an individual, I'm grateful for everything that I've experienced, and the opportunities and the parachutes the Lord has thrown in my way to kind of allow me to experience what I have. So yeah, I'm grateful for everything.
Great. So that's where we come to an end. Thank you so much for your time, Damyant. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and it was a pleasure knowing you.
Thank you,
so
Rima.
much.